the first step for all of us entrepreneurs to do is to educate everyone about what is crypto. How do you get entry into that ecosystem, which is, the easiest was buying crypto.
What is
Yeah.
sharding and how it's different from the current way the network scale?
So you add more shards, which is more pieces of the mirror,
Yeah.
in a way. So, and that's how you can keep expanding your capacity.
That's like one of the best testaments that you need to see that there is a huge demand for a quick and cheap layer one where, it doesn't cost a ton to transact and to do whatever you want to do. So first of all, hello, man, and thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm sure it's going to be very fun.
Hey, Josh, thanks a lot for having me here.
Before we dive deeper into the chasm of Ethereum, layer ones, sharding, and whatnot, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background? How did you stumble onto crypto? What were you doing before Shardeum? And yeah.
Sure. My name is Nischal, and I'm the co-founder at Shardeum. Let me start from I started my career as a software engineer. I worked a corporate job for like a year and a half, and then I joined a startup, and that was like my entry into the whole startup ecosystem.
Right.
Until then, I always thought that you need a lot of money and a lot of people to build companies. The startup taught me that one single individual can really start something from their apartment and grow it into multi-million-dollar companies eventually. So that was my learning, and that's what I did. After 1.5 years at that startup, I built an app during my free time over the weekend, and that app went viral, and it got hundreds of thousands of users who signed up, and I was still working on it part time. And then it reached a stage where it was paying me more than my day job, so I could quit my job. And this app was a social media management app called Crowdfire, where you could manage your Twitter account, your Instagram account, your Facebook account, all from a single place. This was back in 2010. And after I quit my job, I continued to grow that product, and I started hiring people, and scaled it to over 20 million users in about 7 years. Made a multi-million-dollar revenues through the process. We also raised $2.5 million in venture capital in 2015 for that product.
Right.
And that was going well. And around 2017 is when um, uh, I realized the problems with building on top of centralized products, because this was about social media management.
Right.
It was using the APIs from Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And in 2017, most of these companies, they started changing the terms of their APIs. They started telling you what you could do and what you could not do. And we had to sort of, remove some of the features. Our customers were not happy about it, but we had no choice, because, Twitter said, no, you can't do these five things. Facebook said you can't do these three things. And that's when I started, exploring the world of decentralization. So I've always known about Bitcoin. I've been an early, person who tried it way back when, you could still mine it on a desktop, but I never took it seriously. For me, it was like money. But when this happened, the world of decentralization opened up. And that's when I decided that I wanted to build something in this. So the first product I built was WazirX, which is a cryptocurrency exchange based out of India. And the reason I built that is I realized that the first step for all of us entrepreneurs to do is to educate everyone about what is crypto. How do you get entry into that ecosystem, which is, the easiest was buying crypto. So I wanted to make it easy for people to buy. That's how WazirX was launched. We soon scaled it to over 15 million people in about 4 years, and it became the largest crypto exchange in India. While I was building the exchange, I realized that we need to now go to the next step. Like the first step was, yes, you buy your first Bitcoin, you buy your first Ethereum. What's next? Next is you need to then move on to blockchains. And that was not happening, unfortunately. A lot of people on the exchange, almost 95% of the people, have never really tried a decentralized product. For them, buying and selling of crypto was all that crypto existed. And that's unfortunately been the narrative globally. If you think about when you even talk to regulators, anyone, they only talk about crypto in terms of trading and then the price difference and
Exactly.
crazy price movements. But we all know that blockchain as a system can and will eventually touch every industry. Finance is just the start of it. It's like the early days of the internet. If you thought of internet as only a channel for putting a informational website out, we would have never been in this situation today where
Yeah.
our lives can be managed on the internet. And I think the same is true for decentralization. So I was very motivated to build a way for people to move from exchanges next to a decentralized ecosystem. And what I saw was that all the existing solutions like Ethereum and all the other blockchains, the biggest uh, pain point they had was they have an upper limit on how many transactions they can process. Think of that as, if I was to tell you, you can come on the internet, but you can only browse 5 websites a day, or
Yeah.
maybe only 100,000 websites could ever be built on the internet.
Yeah.
That's not the way to bring mass adoption or to give technology to people. A technology should scale, and that's what motivated me to look for a solution where it does not matter whether 100 people use that blockchain or 100 million people use that blockchain will be able to support that audience and not increase the fees, not make it expensive, in fact make it cheaper. That's what technology has always been, right? More
Yeah.
people getting into something means the technology gets cheaper. Now, if you look at the current state of the blockchain ecosystem, more people getting in is making the technology expensive, not cheaper. It's the other way
Right.
around. So we are in an upside down ecosystem today, where if too many people come, we are afraid because the fees are going to go high, and not everyone can run their transactions on chain. Then you have to go off chain. Then we come up with all the other band-aid solutions, which are not really true solutions. The true solution is a decentralized blockchain where it does not matter if 100 people come, a million people come, 100 million people come. They'll all have access and it get cheaper, not expensive. And
Right.
that's what we are building with Shardeum. I was lucky to meet my co-founder, Omar, who was actually thinking of the same problem. Uh, and he was actually building this as a solution from 2018. So it's a hard problem to solve.
Right.
The thing is, it's easy to say that, it should get cheaper and it should be scalable, but it's a hard problem to solve, which is why it's not been solved yet.
Yeah.
But he was building this, and I found it very fascinating when I met him I think in 2019 or 2020, I had met him and we stayed in touch. And in 2021, we decided that we can build this into a smart contract blockchain, which the world can use. That's how
Yeah.
the idea of Shardeum emerged. And we are now close to, I think we are about 3 to 4 months away from mainnet. We've got great traction with Shardeum. We've got close to 900,000 people who have tried the testnet. We've got hundreds of developers who've been building on top of the platform. And we've got tens of thousands of people running nodes on our testnet. So we are, in fact, one of the largest decentralized testnets in the world. With like our current testnet has over, I think, 12,000 people running nodes. So that's what Shardium is right now.
So it's a layer one, right? It's not a layer two.
Yes.
It's a layer one.
No,
It's a
it's
mainnet.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's a layer one, and it's a layer one that scales, which means anyone can access a decentralized blockchain at a really low cost. The idea is to keep the fee as low as 1 cent, irrespective of how many people use it, how many transactions are on the chain, and the
Yeah.
way that can be done is only if the blockchain can scale up. If you look at Ethereum and all the other chains, they have an upper limit. Ethereum
Yeah.
has 10 or 15 transactions. Then someone comes and says, hey, we are better than Ethereum because we've got 300 transactions per second. Then someone says we've got 10,000 transactions per second. But they have that upper limit. So what that means is when they get popular, they'll have the same problems of Ethereum and other blockchain, which is fees will get higher. In Sharding, what happens is every time there is a requirement for more transactions, more nodes can join the network, and the network's capacity will increase. Very similar to how the websites of today operate. If you
Yeah.
get a lot of traffic to your website, you just add more servers so that the traffic can be accommodated. So that's the same concept. It's the first blockchain in the world where if a node joins the network capacity increases. So that's what Shardium is all about.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what sharding actually is? Because I feel this is something that the entire community has been discussing for quite a while, and I still feel that newcomers have a hard time grasping at the concept of sharding. And since your network is called Shardeum, it makes sense to dive a little bit deeper into that particular concept. So what is sharding and how it's different from the current way networks scale?
I think so there are different ways to explain sharding. Let me give you a simple example. I'm just thinking from a non-technical point of view. If we were to think, let's say you had a single mirror in front of you, and you look at yourself. Yes, sure. 5 people maybe they'll try to accommodate, and 5 people can look at the mirror. But if you suddenly have 100 people, then you'll have to stand in the queue and then look at it, and then you go the next person. That's what the blockchains of today is, because it's a single mirror, and all of us want to look at the mirror and see ourselves. One way to scale, and there are many ways to scale, but the sharding way of scaling this mirror is you break it into multiple smaller pieces and hand over those pieces to different people in the room, so that each of them can see the mirror in parallel. You don't have to go sequentially. You can all see. So that's the concept of sharding, which is in the network. For example, now we come to the blockchain. You break the blockchain into multiple smaller chains within that, so that everyone can operate in parallel. So that's what sharding is. You just break a network into multiple smaller networks, such that all of those networks together is one big network, but they have the capacity to operate and transact parallelly.
So is this how you keep on adding capacity to the network? You just add more shards?
Yes, exactly. So you add more shards, which is more pieces of the mirror, in a way. So, and that's how you can keep expanding your capacity. And you also achieve parallel processing, as against the blockchains of today, where your sequence, every transaction has to be one after the other. In Shardeum, you can have transactions happening in parallel. So that's the power of sharding.
Okay, and reading from the documents of your network, it also says that so Shardeum is an EVM based one, so it will communicate with Ethereum.
No, so I'll tell you what that is. If you look at some of the newer chains, that have come up, they've tried to recreate everything from scratch because they wanted to solve a similar problem, which is scalability. The problem with starting with everything from scratch is you also have to break the developer ecosystem, and then you expect developers to create new wallets again. Every smart contract that you can think of has to be recoded in a new programming language.
Right.
It's like if I was to launch a new phone, I would probably go with Android today, even if my phone is brand new and the architecture is different. I'll go with Android because I know overnight I'll get all the applications. So that's what we did with Shardeum. We could have created our own virtual machine where you have to then introduce a new language and do all of those stuff, but we knew that's a hard problem to solve because we don't want to break the community right now. So we decided to go with EVM, and what that means is it's like our technology is here, and that's brand new, but the EVM is on top of it. So now all of your MetaMask and all the wallets and all the smart contracts, you just put it here the way you do it on Ethereum.
Right.
But the underlying technology scales. So this is like the sweet spot for a developer, because now they can easily deploy on Shardeum. For consumer, because when you interact with Shardeum, it will not be different from Ethereum, by the way. There's no new learnings it's the same Ethereum ERC20 smart contracts will learn. You can use your same MetaMask wallet or any other wallet that you want. So there's no learning curve for consumers. There's no learning curve for developers. That's why we went with the EVM.
Pretty convenient, yeah. And then the sentence goes on. So an EVM-based layer 1 that uses dynamic state sharding. I think we've explained what dynamic state sharding means. To achieve linear scalability while attaining atomic composability across shards. I feel there is a lot to unpack here, man. So,
okay, yeah.
Walk me through
the
last part of this sentence.
I think just two things. One is linear scalability. The other is atomic composability.
Exactly.
So linear scalability is nothing but, as you add more nodes, the transaction capacity increases bit by bit. So that's linear scalability. It's like 100 nodes will give you X transaction, 101 node will give you X plus 1, and 102 will give you X plus 2 transaction.
Yeah.
And the simplest way is that it scales linearly versus non-linear, where, you don't know, you add 100 servers, maybe that speed will go a bit more. then you add 200 servers, it will not increase. Then you have to add 500. So it's like, non-linear. But this is linear. This gives you a guarantee that every time a new node joins, the transaction capacity will go upwards. So that's what linear scaling is. A very simple term. But yeah, it sounds technical. I think we techies like to complicate matters to make it sound like, yeah. So that's linear. The last part is very interesting, atomic composability. And this is very important to understand and know. So when you think about a sharded network, and I told you we can break it into pieces. Now the question is, if you think a little deeper, what happens if you have a smart contract on one of those shards, and then you have another smart contract on another shard? And because we are talking about networks, multiple networks, and if you got two smart contracts, let's take for example, I'll give you a simpler to understand example. Is you have a let's say you have a DEX, a decentralized exchange smart contract on one shard, and you have a lending protocol on another. Now, if you look at the traditional smart contract platform, you can actually chain them together. You can take a loan and then use that loan to place an order on an exchange, and you can do that in one transaction. And sometimes you need that. That's where all these flash loan concepts all come. But when you do a sharded network, one of the problems that has happened traditionally, because there were other attempts at sharding, is you can't really put them into one transaction because it's very complicated. There are two different networks sort of thing. And that's what is called as atomic composability, where you can't put them together. So you'll do two different transactions. So you have lost atomic composability. Atomic composability is when you can wrap them into one, such that you either get your loan and you place your transaction, or both of them fail. You should not be in a situation where you took a loan, that happened, but you can't place a transaction. And when this fails, you can't roll back. So that is the problem that a lot of these sharded networks always have. They still have a lot of the sharded networks which are attempting to build sharding. In Shardeum, you don't have that problem. So it actually does not matter which shard your smart contract is on. You can actually loop them all together and make them part of the same transaction. And this is very important, especially in DeFi, because there's a term in DeFi we always hear, which is Legos. We talk about composing different parts and creating a better decentralized application. So they need atomic composability, and that is maintained in Shardeum. And that's one of the most unique factors of Shardeum. As a developer, you don't have to worry about not being able to wrap 5 smart contracts together in one transaction.
You mentioned that you're currently operating your testnet and that you have hundreds of thousands of users. Have you tested the number, like to what extent have the number of transactions increased? Like how battle tested is the testnet so far?
Yeah, so I would say we are still in between. So our first approach in the labs, for example, the team has tested to, I think, they were able to scale for 100 TPS to 500 to 5,000 TPS. So it's gone. And we can go even more because theoretically, that's no limit. The only limit is how much money you want to spend on adding more and more servers, because you'll need tens of thousands of servers. Having said that, on our public testnet, where anyone can run a node, I think we've gone up to probably 100 TPS right now. We've not increased it more because we've had some challenges with stability that the team is fixing right now. And I think we are on the tail end of that. Probably by this month, we'll be finished with all those changes that are required. So in Jan or Feb next year is when we work on the scalability part. So our features are almost complete. Like all the expectations of what is expected from this blockchain is done. We've got these 3 S's that we are now going to take up from Jan, which is scalability, stability, and security. So these are the 3 things that are actually between Shardeum testnet and the mainnet. So that happens. So maybe in Jan or Feb, we'll also stress test the network. But yeah, I think in our labs, we've tried it out where, it's a controlled environment. It's only our nodes running. In the public testnet, we are yet to run something like that.
And is there a token?
Yeah, SHM is a token. It's the native token. So for all your transactions on Shardeum, you'll need SHM. So that's the token, but it's not live yet. It'll be live only on the time when the mainnet goes live.
So it's airdrop season, so I have to ask, like, how does the distribution work?
So we've not yet announced, any airdrop, or that is not the reason why we got 900,000 users or tens of thousands of people running
Yeah,
Node. But we do have an allocation of 5% for ecosystem and for our early use adopters and people who help us test the network. So we do have that in plan. We might announce somewhere in, I think, Jan or Feb. We're just waiting for the stability, because the thing is,
yeah,
even without the airdrop, we've seen so much of adoption. We know when we announce an airdrop, will be massive. So we
yeah,
want to make sure that the network is ready for that kind of influx of people coming in.
yeah. And SHM, is it? So you need
Yeah,
SHM to pay fees. Do you need SHM to run nodes like with
yeah,
Ethereum? Yeah,
yeah. So and the beautiful thing though is that because we need a lot of people running nodes, the barrier to entry, we want to keep it low. So we're thinking of, like, say, $2,000 to $3,000 as the SHM that you require for staking. And our hardware requirements are also low. So you just need 4 GB RAM and about 200 GB hard disk. So you don't need any specialized hardware or something. You could actually run it from any regular devices.
are you hopeful that you will mainnet in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. We are targeting Q1, but like I said, because this stability and security are not really under your control. You can't say in 5 days we'll make it secure. There's an audit going on, but yeah, we are trying for Q1 next year. By March, we want to go live. That's our goal right now.
What's your stance on the current market condition in general? Like, I feel like everyone is overwhelmingly bullish on some Bitcoin ETF approvals and whatnot, and at the same time, I'm paying $50 for a swap on Ethereum. So it kind of feels like we're back to 2020 DeFi summer days. So I was wondering,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
look, I think crypto markets, they always surprise us. I'm not always a big fan when it's just one event that surprises us. It's like what you said. Everything, if it's hinging only on the ETF, I'm not very proud of that.
Yeah,
Versus, let's say, if you look at the last bull run, there were different reasons why it started going up. DeFi really took off. NFTs really took off. There was a lot of talk about, and the new generation of blockchain started launching. So you got these multiple events. Now, again, this could be just the start of it, where we're thinking of ETF. Then we've got the halving in around April or May. The question is, from Jan, once that ETF thing happens or not happens, will we have 2 or 3, 4 more reasons to have 2024 be, like, positive? I think
yeah,
so. It's not clear yet. So I would say be cautious right now. Everyone's don't FOMO in, but also don't also stay out completely, because don't blame me if it keeps going up. I would say but this is a very good time to be cautious. It's a very
yeah,
interesting time, because the ETF is maybe in the second week of Jan or third week, they're seeing. The question is what happens after that.
yeah.
So that'll
And
be because there's a chance it may not be accepted. So you need to be ready for a world where it is not accepted. Then the
yeah.
question is, are there more such good events in 2024? And then you can plan your strategy.
Are you following what's happening on Solana right now?
Not a lot. I
Uh,
mean,
so
are
so
you talking about the bonk and the
b-
phone thing, or something
the
else?
the bonk madness, the phone thing, and the overall explosion of activity on the network in the past few
Yeah,
months, like it's crazy. I think that's like one of the best testaments that you need to see that there is a huge demand for a quick and cheap layer one where it doesn't cost a ton to transact and to do whatever you want to do.
absolutely. And I think these are the experiments that our ecosystem needs, pushing things to the limit, trying things that don't scale. I think that's how we can also understand what are the new ways in which people can build stuff. Very similar to, if you think about back in the day before iOS and Android, there's only so much you could do with building an application on a Symbian device, or for any of
Yeah,
the other feature phones back then. And then iPhone and Android came, and the kind of applications that devs could build. It was about imagination was the limit, not technology. Today we are in that same sort of cusp where technology is a limiter. Can we go from there to imagination being the limit for a blockchain developer? And I think with all these newer chains and with also Shardeum, what we are trying to do is break that barrier of technology and bring a new barrier, which is your imagination, because that's the best ecosystem to be in, where you're like a dev and you're like, hey, can we build this, which, can send 100 transactions. The moment I send one transaction to a smart contract, it will send 500 transactions to people and just airdrop like, less than 1 cent of token. Why does an airdrop have to be $10 or $100? Can I do a 1 cent airdrop? Maybe yes, once you have a scalable system. So I think all these experiments with Solana and the other chains, I think those are really pushing our thought process of, what can happen if transactions is not a limiting factor in the ecosystem.
So it's
good
kind
to
of
see
like
that.
Healthy competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need more of that, because I think, if we are going to play a game like this, it should be a positive sum game. And it is, because our ecosystem is very small right now. We are about 200 million people overall around the world who are into crypto. We are nothing. The world has 7 billion people. And if we think about fighting amongst ourselves, then we are seeing that the ecosystem is going to be only 200 million people. But I don't believe that. We're going to go to 1 billion people in the next 3 to 5 years, which means we're just 20% of the market. So whatever we do, I think we should think about how do you expand that market rather than eating into each other's, little share that we have. I think, and that's why you should look at all of these as great experiments to open up the minds of people. And that's what we need to do. Open up everyone's mind on what can be done. Even just like the simple thing about DeFi. Like, DeFi was great. And then NFT came. It opened up the mind of creative people.
Yeah.
Before that, I used to meet people who are in the creative field. They were like, what is this blockchain? Why do you need to transact? And then after 6 months, I'm meeting them and they're like, I have an NFT. And NFT is a culture. We are creating a tribe around NFTs. It's great. It's inclusion. And I think these are the kind of things, even meme tokens, like people worry about memes, but I've seen meme coins being able to create a community. And that's more important, the NFTs also, like Pudgy Penguins or Bored Ape. I think they're creating communities. What they're actually doing is increasing our ecosystem. You might have your own reason to come into crypto, and that need not just be DeFi. That need not just be about making money. It could be a lot more. Games, for example, are doing that. When the whole friend tech mania was going on, I wrote about it, saying that whether that succeeds or not, it's at least showing people that there's a social angle to blockchain. So I think these are really great experiments that are going on right now.
It's also very an easy and a more approachable, understandable way to onboard new users, right? Because
absolutely,
before we had meme coins to the extent that we have them now, and before we did NFTs and whatnot, like what was there to onboard new users, right? It was mostly the financial side of crypto, whereas now people see that it can also be fun. It can be, and like I feel like it's up to us to start helping the newcomers, but they first have to come, right? And so
exactly,
yeah.
So everyone needs a reason, and I'm afraid money is not going to be the reason, because a lot of people say the money reason was done. I think the last 5 years, 3 years ago, yes, people came with money as the objective, but the world is so big, and there are people for whom money is not a big thing. Like, it's not that attracting. It can be a meme. Meme is the thing that attracts more people. So I think that's what is happening right now.
Yeah, you're very right when you said that they build communities. We can see that some of the strongest communities are those of like Shiba or Dogecoin, or the people are really attracted by that. Okay, so to wrap it up, Nischal, tell me please, what is it that you're most excited about in 2024?
A lot of things. I think the first and the most important thing, in a very tangential thing, is the regulation. Because and regulation is something that you can't silo it and forget about it, even if you're building a decentralized application, because regulations, they've got a certain movement, which is first they go in after all the centralized entities, and that's happened. the next they'll come to decentralized entities also. So I think the regulatory understanding and everything, I think that'll improve next year. Regulators will get better understanding of how do you regulate even decentralized services to an extent, because if there's a centralized component to a decentralized service, that will get under regulatory view. So I think we should all be aware about regulations, and they'll move forward positively for sure in 2024. The other is, I think I'm excited about the Bitcoin halving. I want to see how it affects the market. Will it always, like repeat what has happened, or will it be a new surprise for all of us?
Yeah.
We need to see that. I'm excited about Shardeum launching. I want to see what happens when the ecosystem does not have to worry about transaction costs being high, and no limits on transactions, when you can push really amazing applications, especially microtransactions, for example. I've been a big fan of microtransactions, and I think only the blockchain can solve that. You can't have your Visas and MasterCards do that, because they always charge you 10 cent or 20 cent a minimum because of the intermediaries. So maybe 1 cent microtransactions or 2 cent microtransactions could be a reality. And I hope we get somewhere in 2024 with that. Then the usual, GameFi, social. I have a feeling that we'll see a decentralized social application with a few million users next year. And I think that would be the next jump for social, because this year the experiment was more about, I'll give you money, come to a network. I think next year it might be more about, let's have fun and come to a network. Like the meme movement for social media might happen next year. So yeah, a lot of predictions, but these are some of my top favorites.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Can you tell us and our audience where we can find you on social media?
I'm very active on Twitter. Nischal Shetty is my handle. Yeah, just Twitter. I'm always active on Twitter. So just message me on Twitter. I'm happy to respond.
Yeah. Okay. Well, once again, thank you so much for this.
Thanks a lot for having me here, George.